1-0. It's the bottom of the ninth. The pitcher took the mound with the pennant on the line. The home team groaned. The visitors cheered. He was the finest closer in the league that year. Well, 2 came up and 2 went down, and the next man worked a 3-2 count. 1 more strike to get it done, but he gave up. Back-to-back home runs. It was a bad day to have a bad day. Any other day would have been okay. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. The visiting crowd exited the park. Their hearts were heavy. The mood was dark. They shuffled their feet through the peanuts and the beer and wondered how they let it get away this year. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. Any other day would have been okay. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. Now, everybody stumbles every once in a while. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it does. And that's baseball. Back in the clubhouse, picking up their bags, the pitcher sat alone with his head in his hands. His catcher came over and handed him his stuff and said, "Pull yourself together, man. Get on the bus." It was just a bad day to have a bad day. Any other day would have been okay. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. These lyrics are from the song Bad Day by friends of mine called Berkeley Heart. And in case you haven't noticed yet, I love baseball. Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, there may not be any sport, game, or individual achievement that people can look at and say, this has an impact on a reoccurring basis like baseball does. Now, I've always thought of baseball as a storyteller sport. In fact, it's the perfect sport for Toastmasters. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks could literally be buy me some peanuts and table topics. Every single windup has a story. Every pitch has a story. Every swing, story. From ERAs to batting averages, stolen signs, grand slams, I love baseball. And I love these lyrics because they relate to our topic today. Because in our story, we have a hero who leaves an impact on thousands of fans by losing a game, giving up 1 home run after another. Then we have a teammate who also leaves an impact on our hero with 1 sentence. Both of these characters are leaders. Both of these characters impacted others. And both had to admit it was just a bad day to have a bad day. Now, before I continue, I want to start with an impact that Toastmasters has had on my own public speaking skills. I was a championship speaker, and I had been out of practice. And in my first speech at my home club in Ventura, California, I was at the Diversities Toastmasters, and they let me know that I was not making good eye contact. I was literally looking over every single person's head. That one tip left an impact on my teaching, my life, and most importantly, my bank account. Because as you may have already heard, my name is Josh Damigo, and if you'd like to connect with me and discuss this topic or anything else I discussed, my contact is in the chat. And I'm letting you know that because I teach this for a living. I teach people how to leave impacts on others through human exchange. I'll talk more about that in a second. But what I want for you today is I want this to be more than just a nice, cool, good-looking, well-dressed man giving another speech at Toastmasters. I want this to be for you. And if you need resources or I can support your club or anything else, I'd like to be an offer of help. I'm one of the lead instructors for Influential You, and we teach philosophy in business to mid-level managers, executives, entrepreneurs, and salespeople. And we believe that we solve for the people problem that most companies forget about in their processes. We also cover levers of influence like unity, reciprocity, commitment and consistency, liking, authority, social proof, and scarcity. And that should make you very nervous when you sit next to me because I could very quickly leave an impact on you. Now, I want to do something with my talk and not just let you enjoy all this comedic timing. I want there to be an impact. So if you grab a pen and take some notes, if you listen carefully, you'll get something out of today's talk that I believe you will be able to use in your club, leadership skills, or your life in order to make an impact. I believe that Toastmasters shouldn't use too many slides. This is everything that you need to get down. If you get these 3 things down, you'll be able to remember how to leave an impact. Those impacts are unavoidable impacts, deliberate impacts, and absorbed impacts. Unavoidable impacts, deliberate impacts, and absorbed impacts. Now let's begin by finding out that we are always impacting others. Unavoidable impacts. You are always impacting others. Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher born in 544 BC, is credited for saying, "No man ever steps into the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." Impacts, whether great or small, fundamentally leave objects different than they were pre-impact. There's a change. You may not notice this change, but you are different right this second than you were 5 minutes ago when I began this talk. Like all things, we evolve, we change, and thank goodness, because every time we show up to a Toastmasters meeting, standing at the lectern, or we decline a table topic, we are causing an impact somewhere for someone. Think about how you show up on this Zoom in your club. Are you actively listening, or can everyone see that you're working on something else or maybe not paying attention? That's an impact. Even if your camera's off, you leave an impact. At Influential You, we teach that human beings are always exchanging or transacting. That co-constitutive reciprocal exchange occurs when 2 people have a conversation, bump into each other, exchange goods or services, or something that our species has done for millennia to survive. There's another way to look at it. For a moment, consider that we may just be critters. We are critters that can think, reason, and read, but our ancestors survived because of their ability to exchange. A man got tired of eating fruits and nuts, and he got tired of being attacked by lions and tigers and bears. He gets tired of all this and comes up with a solution that will solve both of these problems because he invented a spear. It worked pretty well on small animals, but face to face with a 700-pound grizzly bear, as I just saw in a brand new movie called Cocaine Bear, the human being and the spear tool will probably not win consistently. So he begins to tell other members of his species about his spear idea, probably at a Toastmaster club. They travel in packs, and eventually they become the top of the food chain because their Toastmasters club had the ability to exchange. If you give me enough time, I could prove that the impact of that invention can be drawn to the tool, like a laptop, a cell phone, or anything that you're using right now on the speech. Your actions and inactions impact the people around you, and many times they extend past those people around you. I'll take it a step further, and I don't know if this club does it, but if you'll hold jazz fingers up, if you're a leader in this club, could you just give me some jazz fingers? It looks like I've got 2 still looking at. Okay, we've got 2 leaders. Good. How many of you felt the impact of a fantastic meeting? Have you ever had that? Is that something you've had where I walked away thinking this was a great meeting? Now, how many of you have ever felt the impact when you find out 15 minutes before your meeting that your table topics master can't make it, and many of you are now going to have to pick it up and quickly have to do it yourself, and then you have to run the whole thing yourself? And poor VP of Education, I know how that feels. I've been there too. Now, I won't make you put your hands up, no jazz fingers for that one, but if your club does that, you may be leaving an impact that's not the impact you want. Whether or not you're a leader, you're always impacting others. The way that you show up to your club impacts everyone else in your club. So this speech is for all of you. And I'll add that one of you might want to go a little deeper. Those that you introduce to Toastmasters, who introduce someone else that never even knew you were part of that Toastmasters, that's a part of your legacy. Each of us shares an impact from the legacy of a man named Ralph Smedley, the founder of Toastmasters International. The legacy we leave may be good or it may be poor, but I invite all of us to hold this point. We are always impacting one another. because I do believe when we understand how impactful we are as human critters, we begin to act differently. It's why I study philosophy. It's why I do what I do, because I want to leave a positive impact everywhere I step. I'll finish this point with this quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way you made them feel. It is an unavoidable impact. You are always impacting others. This brings us to our second point, because if we are always impacting one another, we probably would all strive to be more intentional or be able to better control the impact on others, or deliberately. My second point is that knowing your value allows you to impact others intentionally. Say it again. Knowing the value or your value of your club allows you to impact others intentionally. For this point, I'm going to give you straight economics 101. And before you begin to groan and complain about this millennial getting up and talking about philosophy and ethics, I'll remind you that I bring stories and jokes along with those facts. Here are some of the worst dad jokes I could find for you this morning. How many economists do you need to change the light bulb? The truth is, you don't need any. If the light bulb really had to change, the market forces would have already made it happen. It's going to get worse, everybody. I apologize in advance. Why should you always try to order rare goods from economists? They can always supply anything on demand. Oh boy, this is getting real funny. I know you guys are just cracking up in your seats. Grab the tissues. You're going to start crying with this next one. Why did one man decide to become an economist after being a banker for 25 years? He lost interest. I know, everybody. I know math jokes, they're the best. Why didn't the banker tell any of his friends a capitalism joke? They couldn't afford to get it. You're welcome for stopping. Now, are you ready to talk about value? There are two main elements for value, and if you forget everything else in my speech, please grab this point. The two elements of value are utility and scarcity. Utility, scarcity. I've also heard it as supply and demand, but this example was given to me by my mentor and a double DTM, Kirkland Tibbles, and it's always stuck with me. Utility and scarcity. Utility means useful, or in other words, everybody wants it. Scarcity means only you can give it to them. Utility, scarcity. So now I want to ask you, what's the value of your club? What do you do in your club that everyone wants, but only your club can give it to them? Now, if you say to yourself, well, we're really friendly, or, well, you get to practice public speaking with us, we may not be thinking about our value quite correctly. You see, one of the things I love about this is we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. My friends, that's just the base level of what we do. The lowest value or form of value we ought to be providing for our guests is that quote. Let's break it down together. I'll pose this question for reflection. When was the last time you felt like you were crafting or creating a supportive and positive learning experience? Now, for those of you who are more seasoned in Toastmasters, you may nod in agreement that if our best feedback in a speech is, I prefer that you're standing up during your speech, then there's not much learning, is there? Perhaps their speech was so bad the evaluator didn't say a single nice thing or critique the actual content of the speech and not the speech itself. But why don't we start to put more value into our supportive and positive learning experiences? Secondly, are your members empowered to develop communication and leadership skills? What's the environment like when you arrive? Is it full of last-minute tape and quick fixes like MacGyver because we didn't prepare far enough in advance? Are the first-time guests being asked to be timers or counters because we're struggling to fill all of our roles? Are people in your club actually developing their skills? Or are they just listening to very nice speeches from one another? Finally, does your club's impact result in greater self-confidence and personal growth? Are you measuring the impact that you're making on your members? Are your members walking away with more self-confidence? Are you seeing them grow each week as a speaker or a leader through our programs and in our clubs? The value of each of our clubs ought to be different. I should be able to find different flavors that speak to different groups. If I want to wear a suit in my local area, I'm going to go to Sandpipers and I'm going to dress up real nice and be professional and talk business. If I want to wax philosophically, I'll head to my other home club, Influential You, and that Toastmasters Club will dive into deep theoretical nature of things. I want to have fun. I'll go to the Diversity Toastmasters Club, where just 4 weeks ago, the theme was Twinkies and unicorns. Twinkies and unicorns. If that doesn't tell you it's a fun club, I don't know what will. I also walked away gaining 10 pounds, but knowing the value of your club will allow you to find the right members and help those who are not the right members find a club that may impact them. Now, we're going to talk about absorbed impacts, and I'm going to show you one of the worst games ever created, because this game to me still gives me nightmares. It's called Operation, and if you ever played this game, I apologize for the PTSD that's probably still going through your head. Now, we talk about what happened to the dinosaurs when the meteor hit, but we don't talk about the meteor. We talk about the destruction of Pompei, but we don't mention the impact that it was on Mount Vesuvius. You do realize Mount Vesuvius took a beating at that, don't you? We talk about the loss of property and life, but we don't talk about what happened to the Great Chicago Fire. That poor fire was put out. Now, whether your club is a meteor, Mount Vesuvius, the Great Chicago Fire, or if we only look at the members impacted and we don't talk about the impact of the force that is struck, we're not telling the whole story. There's an impact on ourselves as leaders as well. Now, I spoke with one of the smartest people I know. Her name is Anna Athanasiou, and she was a founding member of a company known as Sun Microsystems, which some of you may be familiar with. And she told me all about this speech. She reminded me that the game Operation we played as children, which, by the way, I was never any good at, but I blame the 5 scoops of sugar that they put in my Kool-Aid, or ADHD. I'm not really sure. It seems like they probably went together, but I always wiggled and I still fidget when I play the game, which is quite frustrating. However, with deliberate practice, I got better, and I was obsessed to get the crown jewel of Operation, the wishbone. Now, if you didn't know, they actually made the game shaper. The shape of the game pieces are actually easier for millennials. And I apologize for those of you that played in the 80s. It was so hard, I could literally put on my resume that I was an expert at grabbing the most difficult objects. Now, that's just a small childhood game, but the implications are massive. A surgeon who performs operations has an end result of the operation. If it's a success, he reflects or she reflects on and write about the success in a file. If it's unsuccessful, they discuss why, how they could do better in the future, and the surgeon is impacted by their own surgery. I'm going to be brief because I don't think that this point needs that much debate, but when you consider the impacts that you have through leadership, consider that it's not just for your members, it's also for you. I want to brag about one of the leaders from my company in Toastmasters, and I apologize as my notes are completely scattered. Maria Robles is a finance assistant here at Influential You, and she joined Toastmasters and became an area director because Paul Kistler, who was our, I think, area director before, he was very hard to say no to. When she joined Diversity Toastmasters, she was a bit timid, but she was always happy to play with us and participate in our table topics. With her finance skills, she became our treasurer, and after a few months, she stepped into the area director role. And if I told you that she hasn't used or and in the last 6 months, that would be impressive, and you should all do some jazz hands for her. But more importantly, she's taken on even bigger responsibilities. She took on a massive chance and enrolled in a specialized education to follow a career path that she didn't think was possible. She was the MC for our first ever Spanish speaking competition here in California. She's become more assertive around our office, and I'd offer that she's even more confident. When I think of the self-absorption of her impact, she is one of the biggest reasons I believe in Toastmasters and I participate in my home clubs as much as I do. The impacts that you absorb are worth it. Impact. It's unavoidable. It's deliberate. And it's absorbed. I'll show you by telling you one more story. 1-0. Bottom of the ninth. The pitcher took the mound with the pennant on the line. The home team groaned. The visitors cheered. He was the finest closer in the league that year. Well, 2 came up, 2 went down. The next man worked a 3-2 count. One more strike to get it done, but he gave up back-to-back home runs. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. Any other day would have been okay. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. It was just a bad day to have a bad day. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Josh. Just a good old fashioned again, Toastmaster round of applause, jazz hands for Josh there while he is going to grab a drink quickly. And just then we're going to start with our Q&A session. So if there are questions for Josh that anybody has, I'm looking around. So if you use if you're off camera or on camera, you can use the reaction button to raise your hand, or you can raise your hand in person because I can see everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, Toastmaster, Vice President of Education, most important person in the club, Eileen. Janet, I see your hand. I'll let you go ahead with the first question. And you're muted just to make sure you know.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, Josh, how do you encourage members to become club officers or to step up to those leadership roles?
You know, that is a really good question because I think many people struggle with that ask. And I'd say more often than not, it's really a matter of seeding it early in the year. The earlier you can start to talk about leadership, the more you can talk about what leadership does, the better it works out. I currently have a vice president of education that is going to be my roommate in about a week because I like him so much and he does so much for our club that I figured if he does that for our club, my house is going to look sparkling. He became one of my favorite human beings because from the get-go, it wasn't ever a question as to who did what role, and he took on the role. In fact, he was my area director. I literally grabbed my area director and made him my VPE because that's kind of how I move with people. I look for those people that can handle things, that are looking for more impact, that are looking for an opportunity to do more roles. And it's really a numbers game. More often than not, it's an invitation to ask them, hey, are you interested in leadership? Is there something that you'd want to do? But peppering it very early in the year so that they remember it's not a last minute thing. It's something that we're kind of seeding early on. It also depends on how big your club is. If you get a bigger club where you have 15, 16, 20, 25 members, it's a lot easier to find qualified individuals that'll help. But more often than not, I see a lot of clubs that are trying to get leadership with 8, 9 roles. And that to me is really the trick, is making sure that you're constantly getting new members in. You'll see I wore my favorite pin, and I like to wear this pin to all of my Toastmaster meetings. This is a 10-member pin because most people can get the DTM pin, but they don't know how to invite others to their Toastmaster club. If you're constantly getting new members, you'll constantly be getting people who are interested in possibly taking on leadership roles. And for me, Janet, it's more of a numbers game than it is anything else. After you have that, then it's just seeding it early on. So that way they know you're looking for leadership way in advance from when you need it. It's not a great answer. Every club is different. And I'm so sorry if you're running through that, but that's generally how I've done it over the last few years.
Thank you. I'm actually asking on behalf of a struggling club right now that's looking for, like, the people are just kind of not stepping up to the plate, I guess. The members, they face closure. So they're thinking maybe new members might take on club officer roles. Any other suggestions to add to my question there on that scenario?
I think it's really good. I oftentimes think that people like you, Janet, who brought me here, introduced me to this club, tend to work really well as sort of missionaries for their club, jumping out to other clubs and letting people know where they are, how to visit. Depending on how they're moving, I'm seeing a difference in two mentalities. There's the mentality that Zoom was terrible, COVID was awful, thank goodness we can get back to in-person Toastmasters. And then I'm seeing the new version of Toastmasters, similar to this club, which is like my home club, where it's just Zoom, because that's more valuable to us. I do international business. I very rarely do speaking engagements in person. More often than not, they're here in this little cube. I would tell you that really, number one, knowing what the value of your club is or what that club's value is, what are they trying to produce? What do they want? And then finding like-minded individuals. Sometimes that means going and visiting other clubs, being friendly with other groups, finding places where they can get things. And it really does come down to growing the club first, but you can't really make anyone become a leader. It's sort of granted and sort of something someone has to take on themselves. I learned very early on, you can't make someone care more about a project that they need to do than they can themselves. I think on that one, it'd probably be more of a case-by-case scenario. I think you'd have to know more about the club, but in general, if you grow your club and invite the right people, it tends to take care of itself. The second thing, and this one has been really valuable, if you force your members to use pathways, like they're not allowed to give a speech unless they give it through pathways, they start to get the value of pathways. They start to get the value of going in and doing it on that website. They start to actually learn things, move ways. You start to become President's Distinguished because you have people working through their pathways. And that right there starts to build the club because you're actually doing a structure. It's not just throwing things together and having a fun time. Janet, I don't know if that helps, but that's where I'd start.
It does. Thank you very much, Josh. I'll turn it back to the Toastmaster.
Thanks, Janet. Josh, can I take Claire's privilege and ask you a question? Because a lot of what you were saying resonated to me as a leader in a large public sector organization. And I think often when we manage people or we're growing teams, we forget that we do have an impact. And I was just wondering in terms of how much of what you were saying about particularly the intentional impact you feel applies to a work environment.
Tell me more about the question, because I think what it's sounding like is that what is the similarities between the impact that you have in leadership in Toastmasters and how it transfers to your own personal job?
Yeah.
I would say this, Toastmasters is a little bit of a sandbox. It's a little bit of a safe space to test out a lot of your management skills, your leadership skills. When you take on a VPE role, as you have, you learn really quickly that if you're not growing a team, if you're not getting help, it's a hard job because you become the president, the VPE, the VPPR, the VP, whatever letters you need after that. You become all of it. And leaders can't do it on their own. You have to have people that you're leading. I often laugh because I get, and I apologize right now if I'm offending anyone, and I hope I'm not. Keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody what you do if I offended you on this one. If you're a leadership coach and you coach people in leadership and you don't have a team, it's theory. It's old theory and it's aging out. We need to have teams to practice our leadership because millennials are different. Gen Z is different. We are finicky and we are mean and we don't care that you've been here for 40 years. We're not impressed. I don't know why. I don't know if it's they gave us trophies every year, but we didn't give them to ourselves. Just remember that. We didn't give them to ourselves. I'll say this, Eileen. You may find that more often than not, this is just a smaller version of what happens in the corporate world, and the same skill sets that you get from running a Toastmasters, working in a Toastmasters, easily transfer over, which I believe was one of Ralph Smedley's designs at the beginning. If you have more language, you're better at communicating. Where's the place to get more language outside of reading? And I hope you are. Toastmasters. Eileen, does that answer the question okay? Or
yeah, absolutely. And certainly I would say that reflects my experience that joining Toastmasters transformed my way of being in my work environment and communicating, which then has had really manifest impacts for me in terms of my own career. So similarly to Janet, I will evangelize to people about the value of Toastmasters in terms of actually your real life impacts. I'm going to look
Really
around
good.
the, sorry.
No, I want to add one more thing because it just inspired me. I remembered, Janet, your question. You want to hear something crazy? I mean, just nuts that everyone's going to write down and love. I don't believe VPEs should ever have to pay their dues. I think the members should pay for the VPE to be the VPE. I think everyone should chuck in $10 and pay for the VPE for the year. Because when you have someone that works that hard and does that much work, yes, it's wonderful that they're paying into the club and doing the dues, but holy smokes, when you find a really good one, keep them. And then when you're able to see the skills that different people have, Janet ought to be the VP of PR and be granted that for every club that she's a person. Like, she is the biggest promoter of Toastmasters of anyone I've ever met anywhere. And my boss made me do Toastmasters. He forced me. He said, all my salespeople will do Toastmasters. I said, sir, I am a public speaking champion. I don't need this. And he said, oh, that's great. Let's find you another job because all of my salespeople will be in Toastmasters. And I said, when do you guys start? And I have been in for 4 years, 5 years. It's been wonderful. I share this with you because when you give value to those people that are really valuable in the organization, have approved themselves to do a job really well, like the VPE, once you have that outgoing people person who can't stop talking or bringing people to your club, hey, you keep inviting people to our club. Can we gift you a VP of PR or a VP of membership in exchange for the work that you're going to do for us? That is another way of just finding that talent, Janet, that you may consider, hey, we'd love to gift you this as a reciprocation for all the work that we think that you could do for our club. So thanks, Eileen. That also, I think, melds itself over to seeing the people skills that you have in your Toastmasters group and then putting people into the right place. Never, ever, ever put the best VP of PR as the VPE because they're just going to be as goofy and fun in the VP of PR. They probably won't get your work done. That is one of the things that I found is let the people that have that certain skill set take those roles. And that's similar to how you do it in the corporate office in a lot of ways. Is it Jacek? I think I saw you come off mute and I don't know if that was on purpose or you had a question or you just.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for noticing this. Actually, you mentioned this a little bit because I wanted to ask you about your opinion, leadership in this old way before pandemic, and then when we started to use Zoom in such way we are using this right now for some clubs, as you mentioned, and for this club there is no Zoom, there is no club. So do you see any difference, or do you have any advice how to use this into for our advantage?
The question I hear is, in the post-COVID world, for clubs that are in person swapping to virtual Zoom calls, how do I help people get there? Or is that, am I close on that question?
Yeah, yes. How you, because you said that we are impacting through leadership our members and people who potentially can come here as guests. How you can do it better in this time when we use Zoom, because there is no choice to do it in a different way in normal meetings, normal venues.
I accept. Jacek, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm sorry for the pop quiz. What were the elements of value that I shared in the speech? Do you remember the 2 elements of value? Did you catch those?
No, I have something somewhere in my notes, but no, I forgot.
Perfect.
About it.
Utility and scarcity. Usefulness, I'm the only one that can give it to you. I tell most clubs to think really accurately about who they want to impact, because if they want to move to a virtual club, there's going to be a different demographic that's interested in that. It may not be the same people that want to be in person want to go to that club. So before switching, we have to say, are we able to reach that person, and where do they hang out? Where do they lie? A lot of times I will jump on a lot of different other virtual Zooms to see what other clubs are doing to make mine better, and actively promoting and saying, hey, thank you so much for letting me come to your club. Come to my club. Come see what we do. Come check us out. My club meets at this time, and then add that. I invite you to look for those people that want that value and think really accurately about what does your club provide so that if it is supposed to be in person and you just can't get anybody to come, well, maybe we need to consider that our value may not be to that person. And that's okay. We want to move to the virtual, but it really comes down to what is the value that you want to provide from your Toastmasters Club. I know some of them want to have fancy dinners and just go do it at around a dinner table. There's one here that's just evaluation. The entire meeting is an evaluation after an evaluation after an evaluation, and they do the entire Toastmasters Club in an evaluation style. I have one club that's just DTMs, and I know a woman who's going through to get her third DTM, all impromptu speaking. Every single speech through all of the pathways impromptu. That sounds insane. But they have a huge value and they're all super excited about their club, and they all only advertise to people that would be really valuable for that club. Me going into a double DTM when I, like Eileen, am so busy I don't have my DTM, it's a problem because I wouldn't be interested in that club. So figuring out what the value of the club is and really sitting down with the leadership to determine what that is probably the start to figuring out where you should go with your club and if you should transition into a virtual world. Does that help, Jasik? Did I get close? And if not, you can tell me. We'll keep talking.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What I wanted to hear maybe more is advice, because you are saying that we have a choice, but some clubs don't have choice, and there is only Zoom to get more members or more guests, right? Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I guess some are forced into that way because that's how it is in different cultures, different places, different way that they dealt with things. I'd say to the limit that you can, do the best value you can. And even on Zoom calls, I think the best thing to have on a Zoom call is not your VP of education running the show or having someone else be the Zoom master every time. Having a real dedicated person to Zoom master to teach Zoom is a really good move. And allowing other people to volunteer for that role on a regular basis, or having that thing gets the whole club better with this platform. But that's about the extent that I can tell you, because I just don't know the situation well enough. If you want, grab my information there, shoot me a message, and we can talk in more detail so that it's more specific to your needs. Thanks, Jason. That's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Josh.
I see Janet's hand up, but if there's anybody else that didn't have their hand up and just wanted to ask a question, just come off mute and we can do that as well. Janet, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to yield to other people if they wanted to ask it first, and I'll just be in the queue here with my hand up. So maybe Eileen can ask if someone else wants to ask a question, then I'll ask if no one does.
Hearing none.
No, I think you're good to go, Janet.
Okay, thanks. I'm wondering if you can do a little role playing, Josh, now, maybe with a volunteer from the audience, and maybe a club that has a certain type of focus or value, and just show us how you would approach someone to interest them in being a club member and even interest them in taking on a club officer role. I think that might be invaluable to us to see how you work and how we can maybe follow your lead. Would that work for you?
It sounds like there's two different versions of it, right? There's the club member version where you're getting new members in your club. And if you don't know the value of Toastmasters, holy smokes, I hope you guys all have that little thing. You can use that like crazy to help people. Secondly, the officer roles, I tend to kind of split those up if I could, but if that's a kind of a double sale, which can be really tricky. It's a very specific type. Janet, does it work if we do maybe one quick one for club membership and one for officer roles?
That would be great. And I'm not sure if there's a couple of volunteers in the audience. If not, I'll volunteer.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with anybody that's interested in doing some talking, since you've heard a lot of me today. Hearing none. Eileen, do you want to play with me?
I'll do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the VPE does everything. That's so wonderful. Eileen, how's things going to work? How are you doing?
Really busy. Yeah.
Really busy?
Yeah.
I love busy. That usually means you're making money.
Unfortunately not. I work in the public sector.
Well, in the public sector, yeah.
Making things happen for people that otherwise wouldn't happen, that make their lives better.
That's so wonderful. I really appreciate your service. I don't know how you do it, but thank you. I've watched Parks and Rec. That show is really rough. And I know that a lot of times people are just nuts, but there is a way to get more money in the public sector, isn't there? Don't you have to get promotions?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
You know, what's funny is if that's so, I have something that might help you get a promotion. Do you want to hear about it?
Oh, go on then.
Now, first off, I'm going to stop here, Janet. Notice how I haven't sold her anything. First, I'm just getting the permission to invite her to something. And I'm talking about, like Zig Ziglar talks about, what's in it for me, WIIFM. What would Eileen, now I'm not promising that she's going to get a promotion, but I think everyone on this call would say that if you practice these people skills and these things, you're going to get better skill sets that are going to transfer. Well, and then I'm going to now find out what she wants, what she's looking for, and then move into the presentation. Well, you know, we have this group and it's so funny. Their club mission is really wonderful. You might really love it. It says that our members are empowered to, and you know, you keep going. Would you be open to showing up with me on, I guess, Monday at noon, 12:15? Are you free then, Eileen? And she says yes or no. If she says yes, I go, great. Here's the thing. And then rather than just like letting her go, say, what time should I expect you? And really get her with that commitment in there, which I think I give a whole nother speech on that, and saying, Eileen, if you don't show up, I'm going to be so bummed because I'm going to tell everybody in the club you're coming. And really give her some of that juice that really, ooh, you're going to be so great. You're going to love this. When you're moving with someone in an invitation way into some sort of a way that's kind of a presentation, what's in it for them, and then really hold that commitment when they say yes, that tends to get people to move really quickly and join the club. And just like I experienced today, once you get them in, it's hard to get them away because, man, this is so much fun. It's so cool to talk to people in different accents and different places and different cats. It's so fun. All right, Eileen, Janet, I'll stop there. Did that fit for the introduction to club members?
It did. Thank you.
And I'll do the officer roles. And Eileen, are we okay on time? How are we doing on time?
We're good for time. We've got another sort of 30 minutes that we can use. So you're perfect for time.
Perfect. If anyone is bored, get your hand up and have a question ready and you will stop getting bored. In fact, you might even turn red real quick. It'll be really fun to watch and sweat. Eileen, you have been a member of our club for a year now. How are you enjoying it?
It's great. It's great. It's transformed my life.
Has it?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's just given me a lot of confidence. When I first came, I didn't even want to say my name, let alone do table topics, but I got really stuck in and done roles.
That's so fun. Do you enjoy the roles? What's your favorite role?
My favorite role is Toastmaster.
Oh, being in charge, being the one kind of controlling everything. All the sales guys are going, oh man, she is serving it up to you on a plate right now. This is so good. Eileen, you love being the Toastmaster. That's crazy.
Yeah. I do. It's a lot of fun.
You know, I've got a way that you could possibly be the Toastmaster multiple times a year. I'm sorry, that sounds so bad. VP of Education is such a hard role. You know, Eileen, we have some ways that I think you could actually even step up to another level. Are you interested in finding out more about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, some of us have been talking, now I'm using commitment and consistency on you. Oh, that's so bad. Eileen, some of us have been talking, we think you'd be really good at this role of VP of Education. I'm not going to lie to you, there's a little extra work, but we're committed to supporting you this year, and we're going to get back to you, and we're going to make an agreement with you that when you email us, we're going to make it a priority to get back to you on a regular basis. On top of that, we'd like to gift you your membership next year if you accept. Is that something you're open to considering?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. At my club, Influential You Toastmasters, we meet at this time, and I can't wait to have you. I'm just kidding. We won't make you do another one, but thank you, Eileen. I think one of the things to remember, and I'll actually put it in the chat because I do have a whole paper on sales that may or may not be available. I think it should be available on your side of the world, in which I talk about the easiest way to get someone to move with you. And really, it's an invitation, a presentation, and a contract or a commitment. And I'm putting it in the link right now, but this is how I generally move, and I teach people to move when it comes to inviting people to do a role or take on any responsibility or something new. And it's these 3 moves. And Janet, I think you've seen the speech before, but don't let the popcorn out. Don't spill the popcorn before the movie. Make people come and show up to another speech, and don't give it all away. So,
No problem. Thanks for doing the role playing, both of you.
and it's not that easy. And you're gonna hear no, and you're gonna hear, and so keep asking, keep finding people. And the more people you have in your club, the easier it is, because it is a numbers game in the end. Thanks, Eileen, for helping. That was really great.
Josh, I have a question because you seems to be very enthusiastic guy. How you do it? How you keep this enthusiasm? Because that's how I know this is helping you being causing an impact. But I cannot believe that you can do it at all times. So what are your tips to keep ourselves in this state as long as possible, especially when
Yeah.
we need this?
I'll start with coffee, caffeine, sugar.
Oh,
Really, I'll say this. One of my favorite books is a really, really old book. I'm saying really, really old book. Sorry if you guys already know this book and you've read it before. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Betcher. You want to see really old book? I believe I have the original pressing that was actually with the Amway Corporation. You can see this is one of those kind of books. It even smells like an old book. I love that smell. What he talks about is that enthusiasm is contagious. It's a mood that you put on. And more often than not, you have to put on the mood of enthusiasm. I'm usually like this, Jasik. This is honestly how I wake up. My girlfriend gets really annoyed really quickly because she is not the same way. I also think you shouldn't fake it. If that's not your normal mode of apparatus, if that's not how you normally do, if you have someone in your club that is that super happy person, putting them in roles like president, putting them in roles where they're getting to talk more and have more fun and be that enthusiastic person is really valuable. In my role as a sales guy, it's kind of necessary more often than not, because philosophically, what I'm trying to do is create a positive mood, because a mood is a future that hasn't happened yet. And I want us to have a future together. So therefore, I'm in a positive, happy mood. That's philosophically. But when I take a step back, generally the best way to meet somebody is to smile and be happy. And that's what Frank Betcher talks about a ton in his books. So I highly recommend those books as a resource. I'll put it in the chat, as that might be easier for everybody. Even if you don't like sales, it's a great book on enthusiasm. Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Betcher. And there you go. Thanks, Jasik. That was really a compliment wrapped into a question. If I could turn it off, I would. Anybody else have anything? Janet, it sounds like it's mostly you and me, and I think you're talking for people, so I appreciate that. I see the hand again. I'll take it.
I always have questions, but if anyone else in the room has questions, please feel free to step in so that I don't monopolize things.
Their Toastmasters clubs have no problem, Janet. It's just yours. So let's keep going.
I'm just wondering what tips you have for working with a committee or recruiting a committee for a club officer role. For example, if the PR person wanted to recruit some people, what tips do you have to manage the different personalities, different skills, to inspire, to help people with their confidence level? Anything from your vast experience you could share with us?
The question is about having committees and remind me what's the committee
Having
version?
committees, like say, for example, someone has a club officer role and they want to perhaps mentor someone to take on the role eventually in the future, or to have some help, some support in that role. So it's not so massive for one person, and maybe that one person would take on the role with the committee. What tips do you have for working effectively with a committee, or even for recruiting a committee?
That's really good. It's really deep. Yeah, that's really hard. It's tricky, right? It depends on how many people you have. I would say this, more often than not, if you can have like regular team meetings Most clubs don't. And really, I think it's the president's responsibility to really kind of run that, to support the VPE. As you guys heard in my pitch to Eileen about becoming the VP of E, it really does take the group. If you're sitting back and letting someone do your Toastmaster Club, you're missing out on so much of the impact of what you can be doing. Now, some people, that's fine, and they're just happy to show up and consume, and that's great. And you'll never get them to change. That's just how they want to do it. But what I find is the way that our club is really valuable and it works is Ryan and I have a regularly scheduled every other week. Every week that we're not having our club, we meet together as president and VP of education, and we read our aims together as a club. We want to be president's distinguished by June. We want to grow the club by this many people. And we actually start all meetings by looking at our points on the Toastmasters performance sheets, distinguished performance charts. Every single club, we start with the president's welcome. And part of my president's welcome is to show everybody where we are on the score sheet, so that everyone knows we need 2 more members to get that point. We need 1 more level 1 to get that point, etc. Once you have everyone moving in the same direction, if you think of the word power, power is organized effort. That's really all it is. Power is organized effort. And if you can get everyone in your club moving, not only are you proving your leadership, you're also proving a form of power. And more often than not, people don't think of all of the help that they can get. They just think of their own responsibilities. And generally, what I see from a lot of VP of educations is they tend to do it all themselves, and they get frustrated with the rest of the club and then burn out. I hope my VP of E is always my VP of E, and I constantly treat him like the champion he is, elevating his status with the club, praising him for the work he does, supporting him, getting help when he needs it. And I think that's the reason that we've done well in our club, to get more members and to grow. But if you don't have that culture of asking for help and giving help on a regular basis, it's really hard to do anything by committee. And that's a whole cultural shift that has to take place inside of a club. And it takes 2 or 3, really, I think it only takes 2 really dedicated Toastmasters to getting that all taken care of. Janet, I think that's the best answer I can give. I've never been in a group that's done more than kind of what ours is doing. And so I don't know how to do it by committee, and I haven't had any education or practice doing it that way.
Okay, thanks for your insights.
Thank you for the questions. And Julia had a question in the chat. Where is the squirt sheet held, please? Or is it something a VPE is able to see? Eileen, without asking permission, do you mind if I share my screen again and show how to get there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, because it can be a mystery to people who haven't been in committees.
It's tricky, right? I would never, ever, ever in a group setting say anything bad about an organization. But boy, I will talk about a website. I will talk about a website. And let's go to this website real quick and show it. I'm going to show this screen. I'm going to take this down and bring up the Toastmasters website. Easiest way, and if you're taking notes, and this is also recorded, so remember, you can get a recording of this afterwards and fast forward to hopefully. You go to toastmasters.org. And I don't know who has the ability to do this and who doesn't, but this is how I get to it. I log in, and my credentials, I'm not really worried too much about people stealing my stuff, but some people I know now that we can pay online, it's a whole different thing. Once you click into the login, it'll take you to this screen. From this screen, you can see that I have Leadership Central down here. I don't know if everybody does, but right here from the organization to you is the section. First page, Distinguished Performance Reports. You can see all the districts at a glance. I click on that. From there, I type in my club right up here in the top left corner. And my club is Influential Use. So I'm going to do Influence Ecology, as we haven't changed the name yet. And I can see all the different ones that say influence. You can see the Influence Ecology Toastmasters. Now, don't be afraid when you see the score. You will see we're right there. We have one person that's signing up this week, and we've got all of our club officers trained. And yes, we are holding all of our points to the end because we are regularly counting it, checking to see that we have the points. I think we're going to miss our goal by 1 point. Not if I have anything to say about it. I will probably be giving 3 speeches a week for the next 2 months, but we're really close. So it's really tricky, but that's how you get to that screen. And that's probably the easiest way that I know how to do it. If someone else knows an easier way or is open to sharing that information, please put your information in the chat and help out Julia. Thanks, Julia. That's a great question.
Do we have any other questions for Josh? Eliza, did you put your camera on? Yeah.
I'll ask a question. So in joining Toastmasters, my goal is to work on my fear of public speaking and become a better public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Give speeches. And my commitment to myself is to always sign up for a role or to give a speech.
Wonderful.
And that keeps me busy.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I was in a club in New Hampshire for a short time, and there were only 8 of us in the club. And 4 people had their DTM and 4 people were beginners. And it was very difficult because as soon as we were given table topics, I would freeze and I just couldn't do it. And so that wasn't fun. So I didn't keep going because it wasn't fun. But then I got to Capital Communicators in Edinburgh, and that was a lot of fun. And it was because there were more members, there was a lot of diversity, a lot of beginners, but also very seasoned people in the club. And everyone took a role, although they also asked me to be on a committee, and I didn't know the commitment, how much was involved in it. And it didn't turn out to be the right thing for me because it was one more afternoon that I didn't know I was going to be needing to set aside that time. So anyway, but I kept going with the group for 2 years, and it was a wonderful experience. And so right now, as I join a new club, I would like to take a role or give a speech. But in terms of being on the committee, that is sort of more than I can do at the moment. And also for me to interest people here around me in the United States and the East Coast to join a club that meets at 8 a.m. Ask. So I want to do my part. But I'm not sure what my part is. And I'm growing a lot just by signing up for a role and also giving speeches. I've grown tremendously. And I feel like that's kind of the right pace for me. But I wondered if you could speak to this issue of people being in other locations where the time of the meeting may not be that easy for people where I live to join. And also how that works when it's international.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's become a new problem, and what a great problem. You know, it's funny because I think what you're describing is really kind of my role in Toastmasters as well. You probably won't see me at a district level or a higher level. I've already got a job in which I have to lead and do things. So this may not be where I want to practice those things. I may want to do that for my organization. I told one area director, I already have a company that doesn't pay me enough. Why would I join another one? And he didn't like that answer. But what he did like, Liza, was the honesty of what I could provide. And when people know what you can or can't provide, what resources you're bringing, whether it's human, tangible, intangible resources, what you find really quickly is they accept and they don't depend on you to bring those things. It's possible that you may have more friends that are free at 8 a.m. than you know. You may not. Is it 8 a.m. or 8 p.m.? Sorry about that.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. It's possible that there may be some people that would value something like that, where that could be the beginning of their day, maybe people who work from home, entrepreneurs. I don't know the world that you move in or not. It actually is a really good time for a lot of people, especially if they put their kids at school and they've just now, dropped the kids off at 7:30 and now at 8 o'clock, they're actually free to go. It could be a solution for somebody, but really it's about finding those people. And I don't necessarily know the circles that you're in, but considering those circles as to who could possibly maybe want this same sort of value that I'm getting, I think that's where I'd go. But I would be very clear and honest with what you can commit to and can't commit to. And then just remind very politely the VP of Ed or the person who keeps telling you that they want you to do a leadership role. Oh, thank you so much. Please accept my decline. the reason I've joined Toastmasters, I just want to work on my public speaking skills. And I think more often than not, people are pretty understanding and open about that. But if you're not inviting people because you're assuming they will just say no, I would just not do that. But if you ask them and they go, oh, that's too early for me, accept and don't ever ask them again. That's fine. But that's probably the best I can kind of do with the information you gave me. Is that aligned with what you were looking for? Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does. And I want to say one more thing. I work as a psychologist, and
Oh.
I feel that coming to Toastmasters is my therapy. It's therapy because this is an environment where there's unconditional love and unconditional positive regard. And so this is a place where I can make a mistake. I can fall on my face and it's okay. And people need that. And sometimes people have grown up in families where that was not acceptable. You couldn't make a mistake. And yet to come to Toastmasters and to have goals, but to also have a mentor, that's another wonderful thing about Toastmasters. So it's an environment where everyone can grow. And the other thing is that here, I feel like I have to reach into my courage muscles every time I'm going to either do a role or to get up and give a speech. That's very empowering. And this month I had to give 2 speeches in here in my, well, one in my town, one in my church. I had the tools because I have been coming to Toastmasters, and they were only small speeches, just 2 or 3 minutes. But I used my Toastmaster skills. I got up, I was able to do it. I felt really good about it. And that's where I think this is great therapy for anyone. But if I recommend it to my clients, I would not recommend my meeting because that is my meeting.
Yeah.
So
That's smart.
But I think the power of it, and also when you think of how inexpensive it is, and you just have to keep going. And people say it works if you work it. So it's just the commitment to say, I'll do something every single time I go, and that will make me grow over time. If people buy into that concept, then they really do grow and great things happen.
That's so good, Eileen. Or sorry, I said Eileen. Eliza. Eliza, if it's okay, I'm going to use you as a meta example of what we just talked about. First off, I know that maybe I'm mixing up my clubs, but how many people by show of hands that are on camera know Eliza? How many of you know Eliza, have met her before? Okay, a couple. How many of you don't know her? Show of hands, you've never met her before, you've never seen her speak. Okay, cool. How many of you were just impacted by her story? How many of you liked that part of it more than anything? I mean, Eliza, your story, and this is kind of true of every Toastmaster, so well articulated, that's all you have to tell people. Zig Ziglar talks about it kind of regularly. You could literally pin a sign-up sheet on the back of Lassie or a giant dog, run it through town, and someone will sign up, even if they don't know what they're signing up for. They'll definitely find, when you just tell somebody what it's meant to you, your testimony, your version of why this is valuable, it means something. I bet every single person on this call has a similar story. In fact, someone in the chat said, me too, Eileen, it was Eileen. She said the same thing, and she's the VP of E. She's the hardest working person in here. I'll say this, Eliza, the more people you tell that story to, that's really what this book, Frank Vetcher, he just says, go and tell your story. Go tell someone your story and they'll join the Toastmaster Club. Go tell your story. Each and every one of us, when we do that, we impact more than we'll ever know that we impact. And some of them, they won't join Toastmasters right away, but they know about it. And the next guy that shows up and he's like, hey, how you doing? How do I get you into this Toastmasters Club today? And he's wearing a cheesy suit and they happen to see him with glasses and that aren't even real. These don't even do anything. They just make me look smarter. What you find really quickly is sometime they will find a place where they get something like this, but that's the real value of Toastmasters. Where else in the world can you find a supportive place to work on the worst possible thing, public speaking? If they had a support group for spiders, being afraid of spiders, I would be in that tomorrow. I haven't found it, nor do I have any spiders living in my house at all. So I don't have to worry about it because they don't live here. I'm just going to use that method, Eliza. I'm sure that's healthy. But I thank you for that story because I think that that's really what this is all about. The impact you just made on people that know you and don't know you is the same impact that you can use in your club to invite other people. But knowing what your value is in your club, and really in that club, it's to get better at public speaking, accept it. And then don't take on any rules. Please don't. But be honest with them and let them know what you can do and can't do, because that's much better than taking on a role that you can't hold and then making everyone miserable for a year because you're in a role that you really didn't want to do in the first place, but you felt pressured to do because they needed it. And that's is definitely, if someone was taking my ums and ahs, that should be my trigger word. That's what I think is valuable there. Hey, Adrian. Thank you, Eliza.
Hi, Josh. Thanks very much for your speech. That's been really, really good.
Oh, thank you, Adrian. Adrian, thank you for your laughs. Thank you for smiling and have your camera on. You don't know how invaluable that is to public speaking, to see a reaction. When I told a joke and you smiled, even if it was a terrible joke about the economy, it made my speech better. So thank you.
Yes, you need a good audience to be a good speaker. I just want to echo what Eliza's been saying, because she's joined my club, which is great, and sorry to Capital because they've lost her. I think one of the points you made, Eliza, was it's just important to be there. You know, even if you don't have a role, even if you don't have a speech, even if you don't really want to do anything, just be there. I was really shy when I started Toastmasters, and I didn't do anything for ages. I just wanted to be there amongst a group of lively people, fun time. And it was only months later before I said anything or did anything. But and I think people forget that rubs off on you, and especially if you're in a Toastmaster meeting, which is positive and it's good fun, you really want to keep coming back. Hence my smile, because I like to do this. But it's also very useful knowing that Eliza doesn't want to take a role on the committee, seeing as I'm recruiting at the moment. So I thank you for that, Eliza. One last thing is, people can do table topics really easily. Sometimes they have, I don't know, an inbuilt creativity or imagination, or just being able to put through, because it's a mini story, a sort of beginning, middle, and end. And I have to say, Eliza's table topics are absolutely wonderful. They really, they're so good. They even have a message. You know, that is really something. So we are really enjoying having Eliza in our club, and I really appreciate that. Thanks, Josh.
Adrian, that's wonderful. Eliza, you're welcome. Look at that. She's ready to pay her dues for next year, Adrian. Well done. Do you do that every meeting? I mean, let's do that with everybody in our meetings. Let's make this that supportive place we say it is. And I love what you said about the first time you spoke. Now, I'm going to share this with you. This is an object I got during COVID. You can all tell I'm a people person. These are my bosses. And this gentleman with the checkered suit, his name's Kirkland Tibbles. He's a 42-year Toastmaster. 42 years. He has 2 DTMs. I believe he was one of the first ones in our district to get both the booklet one and the online version of the DTMs. And he said his first speech 42 years ago, they said he gave a speech, but he only remembers uttering. And if uttering is a word or a speech, then he accepts. But he believes he literally got up and said, for a minute straight. And that was his introduction. It's so incredible to see how many people move to hear those things like, I can't watch the news anymore because people say and too much. To watch people start a speech with something, maybe your grandkids, maybe your children, to start a speech, anything outside of, hey guys, is like a joy for my generation, because that's all my generation knows how to start with their virtual greetings to people. And it's incredible to hear people that are actually putting in the practice in an environment in which they can grow, because it's just very novel. And I think that's so sad. We should all start different clubs. And remember, if you do start the support group for spiders, please let me know where to send the check. I am so into that. Do we have any other questions that could help? And thank you so much for all of the questions so far. I think they've all been really good and good for the group to hear different solutions or ideas as well. Eileen, I've worn them out. Too much
You
enthusiasm.
really have, Josh. It's that level of enthusiasm, and for us it is now 9 p.m.
Yeah, no cup of coffee before you go to bed. I apologize for all of that. Try to sleep after that.
Indeed. No, absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for giving your time to come and give us your presentation and answer our questions today. I think all of us have found it really helpful and useful, and certainly it's provoked a lot of thought for me about, what is unique and what can we do and what can we offer to people as a club going forward. In terms of today, I would like us all again just to show Josh another round of appreciation, because he's given us his time and obviously his experience, and as Toastmasters, that's such a wonderful thing. Thank you so much. Josh, we will also send you a formal email of thank you, just to, if that's helpful for you in any purpose, but you are more than welcome to come and join us again at any Edinburgh Advanced Toastmaster meeting. We will share I think Jacek shared the link in the chat. If anybody's interested in finding out more about future workshops or coming along to club meetings, then please just pop your details into that link and we will make sure that you're kept in touch with what else we've got going on. We'll have a little bit of a pause in terms of workshops over the summer, but we'll be coming back in early autumn. So watch this space, because we certainly really enjoy these master classes that bring together people from all around the world. It's just such a wonderful experience. So Josh, thanks again. And
Thank you, Eileen. And
hopefully
before
you revved up
apologize.
the rest of your day.
Before I complete, could I please just say a big thank you, Moira? I am not the easiest person to corral. My boss has told me it's kind of like grabbing kittens, like 80 kittens, and trying to peck the one of them. So thank you for all of your work and help. I loved working with you. It was so efficient. And I knew every time I sent an email, I was going to get a very thoughtful email back. And also, Janet, you two must be, sisters from another mister or connected somehow spiritually. I don't know. It's very similar working with you. Sometimes I couldn't tell where one of you ended and the other one began, because you're so detail oriented, and it made it really easy for me as a speaker. And if you don't know this, that value of being able to be very direct and tell somebody what you need is so good for the space cadet that I am. So thank you very much for your help, Moira, and Janet, for introducing me to everybody.
You're welcome, Josh.
Here, here. I am that space cadet for our club. Josh and Moira has kept me in order, and Janet has for a number of years. We bring the enthusiasm to the party. That's been a great meeting, everybody. It feels almost sad to say that we're now at our close, but as I say, Jacek's popped the link again into the chat. Just take that and any of Josh's papers, that was really helpful. So see you again in the autumn.